They napped soundly for a while, the immediate area finally feeling at peace. The nap was about to move into deep sleep when Ricky and Beninka were startled by shuffling in the parking lot. Scientists were scurrying around taking samples as the fire burned, still having several hours left in it to complete its cleansing task. Both had eyes open, but trying not to startle the scientists, who surely had been through a lot. It seemed like the front of the building had its own floodlights, which were illuminating the situation in the parking lot. Ricky and Beninka were positioned in a way to where they were in a shadow of the building, so the lights hadn't caused the two notice. Ricky looked up slowly when he thought the scientists weren't looking in their direction and saw people poking and prodding at the people he had set aside for them. There were others collecting bones from the pile with special tools. One scientist looked to be fighting with a crow that wanted something silver on the body's jacket. The crow began to get the upper hand in the tug-of-war, and the person gave up and gave the crow the object, who then flew off, satisfied. Neither could think of a particularly good way to start the conversation. Then Ricky remembered. "We have your guys' smartphone USB stick we recovered from one of your researchers." Ricky had tried to cram the message all out as fast as he could, so he skipped the formalities. Several looked like they wanted to run back inside without even thinking. Others didn't know what to do and looked towards someone who must have been their informal leader. A lot of pain sounded in their voice. "He was very brave. May I ask what happened to him?" "I assume you two didn't." Ricky responded, "No, we didn't do anything to hurt him. He escaped these psychos and collapsed near our area. We were unable to..." Ricky trailed off, unable to finish the thought. "We did get his research data, though. We thought you'd want it." Ricky hopped off the car to hand them the recovered equipment. Beninka instinctively rolled with sudden motion and landed gracefully on the concrete. Ricky instantly regretted the movement, realizing Beninka was still curled up with him, and he hadn't taken her into consideration. The scientists scattered and started scuttling toward the building as fast as they could, shuffle in their various protective equipment. North a mile or two, several large explosions went off and at least 8 different rifles started firing. A shuffling was heard on the top of the roof as presumably the sniper that Ricky had completely forgot about switched positions to investigate the commotion in the night. Come inside quietly," the supervisor said. From around 30 feet away, Ricky noticed the other scientists were already inside, but he couldn't see far because the light was now in his face. Ricky grabbed Beninka's hand and the three rushed to the building as safely as they could. The building was already shut and locked, but the supervisor swiped his card and in they went. Within a second, the outside floodlights shut off, and in the night, the bonfire kept doing its job. The trio went around some walls, through a hallway, and got into an elevator. As the door closed, all the lights on the floor shut off, and down they went, way down. The lights flickered in the elevator, and Ricky got punched hard in the shoulder. His body barely rocked, but he definitely felt it. Ricky apologized to Beninka and then got a big hug under his jacket that didn't let go. Ricky smiled as the light flickered as they continued their descent. Chapter 17, Busy Bees, the CDC lab underground, late night time. The elevator reached its predestined stopping point and the door swished open. The room felt pressurized and sterile to Ricky, although when he looked around, everyone was in normal lab attire instead of protective suits. Everyone ignored Ricky and Beninka and continued with their business. The supervisor that rode down with them put his hands out to Ricky and made an upsetting face. Ricky apologized for their loss and handed over the USB stick, phone, ID badge, and wallet. "This is all he had, sorry." "It's okay, we do appreciate it. We deactivated his credentials when he didn't come back on time, but we hadn't feared the worst. At least he didn't get turned into one of them." Beninka and Ricky nodded. "Come take a look at what we're doing. You've been out there and already seen this much, then you can crash if you want. Staying one night shouldn't contaminate anything too bad. What they have isn't contagious person to person anyway. It's shared intravenously and through insects. Obviously the insects ignore both of you due to lavender, chamomile, and licorice. Pretty ingenious you two coming up with that, actually." The lead researcher took some notes. Beninka and Ricky looked at each other and shrugged. Beninka flashed Ricky a subtle grin. The research supervisor handed off the USB stick and mobile device and handed it off to an admin. Handed them off to an admin. Hey, sync this up, would you? Pretty important. The admin nodded and prioritized the task. Ricky looked around and noticed everyone was working like the area hadn't been collapsed for 3 years or however long it's been. His eyes bugged out a little and Beninka smacked him to pay attention. The research lead was explaining about all the different viruses. Something about Giardia, and a parasite in the water, and malaria, and Zika, an advanced form of Zika. The scientist guy was going on, and Ricky was very fatigued. He needed his little rat nap, or he was going to fall apart any time now and be useless. The supervisor looked at Ricky and saw he was getting loopy. Oh hey, some fresh water will clear that right up. Then you can crash if you want. The lead researcher had another admin grab them a few water bottles and said to take them to the prior researcher's room. He'd want y'all to have it. You're welcome to stay till morning then. I got a favor to ask. A few, actually. Ricky thought returning favors sounded like a good idea. They got to the room and he slammed the water bottle down. Ricky barely made it to bed, a real bed, before passing out. He subconsciously was aware of someone kicking him around, trying to adjust the covers, then crawling in with him. Then he slept like a log. Peaceful hums of the lab going on in the background like a distant ocean. Chapter 18. Job to do. Early next morning. Ricky woke to getting poked with a stick. He swatted it away a few times before grabbing it and swinging it around, trying to whack whatever had been poking him. He adjusted his body to get extra swinging range and then remembered he was in a real bed. Ricky's eyes abruptly opened and then scanned to see who he was swinging a stick at. The stick ended up being a metal testing rod, which he handed back to the admin, who had been trying to get knocked out by it. Sorry, we'd been knocking for a while, but you were out, and it was my job to wake you, and I have to. Yeah, it's fine, kiddo. What's up? Management requests your attendance at the morning meeting in 30 minutes. Do you accept the meeting invite? ? Ricky raised an eyebrow as he felt like he was somehow talking to an email meeting calendar. Yep, meeting accepted, thanks. The intern threw a pair of fresh towels on the bed and then scurried out with his metal instrument, shutting the door behind him before he got whacked again for good measure. Ricky couldn't remember how long it had been since he'd taken a real shower. He checked the bathroom and there was a full set of amenities. Ricky lamented the prior owner couldn't be here anymore, but everything happened for a reason, Ricky supposed. Ricky got smacked from behind as Beninka shoved her way past him into the bathroom and then literally kicked him out and playfully shut the door on his face. An hour later, the two found their way into the conference room via an admin that was waiting for them. In the room at the oval table was all various kinds of diverse researchers. Some looked like horticulturists, others maybe like their special skills were in anatomy. One looked like a pediatrician and another looked like a pharmacist. One in the corner looked like a sniper. He had an absurdly oversized bolt-action rifle that looked bigger than him with a scope half the size of the rifle. The kid, who didn't look a day over 20, put both fingers up at Ricky and pretended to take a shot at him. Ricky pretended to die, and then Beninka pretended to use Ricky as a shooting platform and shot back at the marksman prodigy with her fingers. This gave the kid a huge smile, and he gave her a thumbs up. The whole interaction seemed to be lost on the scientists as they were humming and hawing about 15 different strategies. They were all equally important and could happen in parallel, but all still needed their own unique assignments and tasks. One researcher mentioned this is what they could hopefully rely on the two contractors for. Ricky guessed they meant him and Beninka. He turned to look at her with a stupid grin, and she appeared to be glowing. This made Ricky grin more, and he got a stern look from her. Then she started reapplying her black makeup in the middle of the meeting. The researchers talked about some kind of artificial kill switch the genetically modified plant companies had developed. There were already triggers that could kill the plant companies' genetically modified plants every year if the farmers didn't comply with their ever-increasing demands, the failsafe doubled as a contingency if the plants, for some reason, fought back and decided to reproduce despite the genetic coding the genetic companies had installed on the food-producing plants.